Word
Okay,
document here.
cool. So the build specific. So okay, one thing with the Reaper, the most important thing to do with the Reaper is to delay the third base and see if it's coming.
Okay.
Because the way you play will be pretty different if they have a third. So what I actually do with my Reaper is I send it to their natural, I check that there's lanes, and then I go immediately to his third.
Okay, so you don't even bother with trying to like kill a ling or two or any of that nonsense. You're just going for info.
Yeah, because so let's say like best case scenario, I kill two, maybe three Zerglings.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the good Zergs are doing builds where they'll put down a third hatchery like a full minute before speed finishes.
Mm-hmm.
And delaying that hatchery feels much more important to me on average than killing a.
That makes perfect sense.
And you could be playing a Zerg who wasn't planning on taking a third. And in that case, it's like, well, okay, your Reaper is not denying anything, but it's still giving you information.
Right. And so I've been practicing a lot with a Master One Zerg friend of mine and just kind of going over replays, asking him questions and whatnot. And so the timing benchmarks that he's given me were if there's no third down by 3:30, start to get suspicious, and then after that, if there's no fourth by 6 minutes, to be on the lookout there, because he did a like a max roach timing on me one time, and I just didn't scout it in time and kind of got stomped. But so that was when he was talking about the fourth base timing. But so does that 3:30 benchmark, is that a good sort of rule of thumb?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. There are a lot of different builds. Some of them, they're like, so some people will do the hatch, like I said, substantially earlier than others.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the main thing is, do they try and expand before or after speed finishes? Because some builds just won't try and put a third hatch down until basically speed is done.
Okay.
And those, just because they wait that long doesn't mean they're all inning you.
All right. That is really useful. Okay. Great.
Um, so other questions? Does that kind of answer what you were
Yeah.
talking about with the Bling Bane? Do you want to talk
Yeah.
about that more?
Definitely. No. I mean, maybe in the future, if it's really giving me trouble, maybe we'll
Right.
do a lesson where we focus on TVZ. But like I said, when I lose TVZ, which is a little over half the time, I generally understand what happened, and
Sure.
it usually comes down to execution. But
Yep.
yeah,
And
TVT is a different beast.
okay. And again, the best way that I can help you is if you bring replays
Yep, I've got some replays for you.
to support your questions. Okay, great. So do you want to just host the first one,
Yeah.
and then we can kind of talk about TBT as we're getting that started?
Yep. Okay. So I've got three replays here. One of them is a case where it's a common one base that I lose to. That's one base tank Viking.
Okay.
Another is another TVT loss where I have a lot of trouble with the early game pressure, and that's really like kind of the main theme with my TVT troubles. And another would be it's actually um, a win, but so what I would analyze there was more related to how I adjusted my build based on what I scouted. But like I said, in all three games, the early game is what's giving me the most trouble, and I'm really unsure about my decision making. So
Okay. Well, I think if we just start with a replay and let me
okay,
just see what you're doing, and that will help a lot.
all right, let's go with this one here. This is a very typical loss.
Give me lobby, so I can control the replay.
Got it. All right.
So what build do Do you have like a specific build that you usually do in TvT?
So I was doing the 6 Marine Widowmine drop for a while, but
Yep.
I was just getting pounded by early aggression. Like sometimes I could defend it, but a lot of times it was relying on it's specifically Cyclone aggression, by the way. Um,
Yep.
Relying on getting a Widowmine shot off, defending that, and then picking up and sending it across for the drop. But so
Okay.
after playing some games with a friend of mine, a TvT friend of mine, he suggested that instead of going with the Widowmine, go with basically same build, gas first, Reaper, but make more than one Reaper and get a Cyclone out of the factories. So that was the adjustment that I made. I've been holding off aggression a little better, still not great though.
Okay. Interesting. So you always build the CC in your main?
No, actually I hate doing that. I just started doing that this week. Yeah, prior to this week, 100% of the time I build it on the low ground.
Oh, okay. Why do you get 2 Reapers?
To go against the again, just being super defensive, which I also don't like, but I just got really sick of getting crushed by the one base pushes. And so the one thing that I
What
changed, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
what one base push makes us is safer with 2 Reapers? What are you concerned about here?
So honestly, I can't even answer that specifically because it's more like this this primal fear of getting wrecked by a rush, and it's not even responding to something specific.
But like what rush? What does the second Reaper make you safe against?
Something like, for example, if it's the Reaper SCV, we can't really call it a rush, but the Reaper SCV pressure and then bringing Cyclones behind it. Um, Also, the 2 and 3 racks Reaper are still not uncommon for me to play
Okay.
against, and also, and by the way, the 2 racks Reaper or the 3 racks Reaper where they pool the Reapers, so they'll pool 2 and then attack you with that instead of showing 1. When I go Reaper Reactor, that can give me trouble because I'm trying to defend with Reaper and a few SCVs before those 2 Marines pop out.
Okay. I just want to make sure that there's like a reason for these
Okay.
things. And that's ideally you're not doing that, but if you are doing it, it's not a huge deal. Let me look
Hmm.
back at your gas time on this. So, and then you get the second gas as soon as you have money. That seems fine. So basically, the most important interaction early game in TvT is that Cyclones are the best unit you can make.
Okay.
That is hands down. If you are ever concerned about an attack, if you want to attack, basically anything you want to do short term, the most efficient way to do it is with Cyclones. Cyclones do not scale. They are terrible once you have stim and siege tanks. But until those things are out, nothing is better than a Cyclone in this matchup.
Okay. By the way,
So, yeah.
because I've heard a lot of people say that, and I've noticed it myself, but I don't even know why it is. Why is it that they are so terrible as the game progresses?
So they have a really short range. They are extremely gas heavy, and they just don't trade well with stim marines or siege tanks.
Okay.
Um, Probably the biggest thing is that as the game goes on, you need units that kill marines, and cyclones don't kill marines. Siege
Okay.
tanks kill marines.
All right, that makes sense. By the
But
way,
until the marines have upgrades, cyclones do better, and they're more efficient. They're cheaper. They're more mobile. They just do everything that marines do better.
okay.
The other thing you can do here is as soon as your first wait, why are you making 2 more reapers?
I should not be. I think I actually canceled him here. That's a mistake. Yeah, yeah, I
Okay,
can't. Yeah.
makes sense. The other thing that this is very safe. This is far too safe. It feels like you've been traumatized as a child or something.
It's so funny because I was going to say like I feel like my opening is like the fetal position opening. Like please don't kill me, and when I get bigger someday, I'm going to try to kill you.
Yeah, this is. I have literally never seen that Viking skin. That's yeah. This is not So you're putting yourself really far behind because of the way. So let's talk about a couple of things. One is if you just make a bunch of cyclones, he can't attack you.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually have opportunities to be on the map and be aggressive and things like. I would not start with early siege tanks like this. It's just it doesn't give you any opportunities.
Got it. So when you're saying if I make a lot of cyclones, are you talking about immediate reactor on the factory or just producing them
No,
off
no, no.
of?
It's just constant cyclone production. You can make 2, 3, or 4 is usually the
Okay,
correct number. I would almost never only make one.
got it.
Mm. The other thing that you want to do, so when your CC in your main finishes, you need to just load it down. You can't. So your opponent did an opening that is more tech oriented. And so he had opportunities to be aggressive. He has better scouting than you. He has better tech.
Mm-hmm.
Your one main advantage is that you have a better economy. But you're basically forfeiting that advantage because of how long, how safe you're playing.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
So the float the CC down right away. Don't worry about making siege tanks early. Just make more cyclones. And when your first cyclone finishes, send one of your reapers around and go scout his base.
Okay, win first. Got it.
And if that reaper can't get into his base, you need to scan it.
All right, and so if I'm making multiple cyclones, would you just ditch the multiple reapers then, and go reaper reactor?
Um, yes, but I'm not sure how it matches up against like 2-Rex Reaper.
Okay.
So you may have it. You're not going to lose. It's not like if you only make one Reaper and he goes 2-Rex Reaper. It's not like, oh my god, you got blind counter, like the game is over. It's just it's awkward. He's
Okay.
going to have one Reaper against your or 2 Reapers against your one for a little bit of time. But if you're building your CC in your main, it shouldn't really be a big deal. Like you just pull some SCVs, play a little defensive, and
Yeah.
as soon as the first cyclone comes out, all of the aggression goes away and it doesn't matter.
So I feel
And
like
then you're just at a big advantage because you
okay.
attack.
So I feel like such a coward making the CC in the main. I hate it so much, but yeah, I've been wrecked one too many times. And by the way, so this Banshee follow up is also something that generally has given me trouble, but now that I'm taking into account what you're saying, I'm thinking it's probably because I've been going into the siege tank production so
Mm-hmm.
quickly. If I have multiple cyclones, it's going to be a bit better against the Banshee follow ups.
Yeah, I mean, if you have 3 cyclones right now, the Banshee flies in, you just scan, lock on. It's either dead or almost dead.
Right. Yeah.
The other thing is if you scout at the timing that I told you to, you would know the Banshee was coming. So your units would be in the right position.
Right. Yeah. And so that scan that I got doesn't really help me at all. I see a tech lab on the factory and a naked starport.
Yeah, so it was probably a little too early. Well, no, you did see the medevac, because he did go medevac and then he went Banshee, so it's not unreasonable. The other thing you can do is instead of making a Viking, you can just make a Raven.
Just go Raven. Yeah. You know what? Why the heck didn't I do that? Good point.
So you might have to make a Widowmine instead of another Cyclone, and that's fine. But the Raven basically says you are, I mean, you can use it to harass eventually, but initially it just means you're safe against Banshees, you're safe against timings because you have the auto turrets.
Right. So I guess I mean proceed with the replay at your leisure. But if I were to summarize just in abstract my problem with TvT is with TvZ and TvP, I have a very clear idea of what I'm supposed to do throughout the game. Like I have very clear objectives with TvZ and my 211 or my Banshee. I know what my target is with the build. When I play TvT, I kind of feel like I'm just blowing around in the wind and at some point trying to like get a drop in that he doesn't see or or set up an attack at his third that he doesn't see. But I don't have a clear idea of when I should push out, when something might be coming my way, etc.
Sure. So are we talking in the abstract sense, or do you mean like you want a specific build that has a specific timing where you're supposed to be attacking?
I mean, if the solution is that simple, then sure. But yeah, it's more like trying to get an idea of what a good way to play the matchup is. If keeping in mind, I don't play mecha, I don't like it, so I play bio, and generally speaking, I like to be aggressive in the mid game. I hate playing as passively as I am in this game here. It's not my style in the other matchups. I don't want it to be my style in TvT, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. So one of the weirdest parts about TvT is how low your SCV count should be.
Okay.
So your opponent is basically right on track, and you are definitely oversaturated.
Okay.
So in TvT, you basically don't want more than 2 base worth of SCVs.
Wow. I never knew that.
It's very weird. And this is for a specific style that I'm going to explain in a moment. But the general idea is that it is very, very hard to play defensive in this matchup.
Yeah, you're telling me.
Yeah, well, because of Doom drops, because of Liberator slow push, because of I mean, those are the real reasons. Doom drops and the way that they can just break your tank line with air control means that it's very, very hard for you to actually play defensive and get a really big economy going. And so instead of trying to do that, what I recommend is you stay with this really low SCV count, like 40, 45. You go up to 5 barracks before your third command center, which it looks like you did in this game, so that's cool.
Yeah, I usually don't, by the way. I usually go 3 and then third, but okay, so this is good to know.
Yeah, go up to 5, and you're not going to actually worry about getting extra SCVs for your third until much later, because what will happen is by the time. So another thing that happens in this matchup is you expand later. You take your third later in this matchup than you can against Zerg and Protoss.
Okay.
And what that can kind of lead to is you'll have all these SCVs that have nothing to do. So like by the time you take your third, your main will be basically mined out. So you'll have about 10 SCVs there, and your natural will probably have 1 or 2 patches gone.
Okay.
And already you have full mineral saturation at your third. And early on, you don't need gas saturation. Not with the style that I'm talking about, where you go for the early 5 barracks.
Okay. And I'm sorry, continue. I was just gonna say with the with the 5 barracks play, are you gonna be looking to set up a push at the opponent's third? Are you going to be looking for multiple drop locations, or are you just looking in general to be on the map and to take what you can get? Like, what's the objective?
So it depends a lot on what they're doing.
Okay.
If they're going for an early fast third, then you play more aggressive. If they're playing also 2 base 5 rack style, then you have to play much more cautiously.
Okay. And okay, so you're saying play cautiously. If you could describe what that would entail, because I'm assuming if I'm going 5 racks before third base, I don't want to be sitting in my base, right?
So what that means is you put a premium on map control. So your opponent's doing a good job here. You can see he's got these Marines spread out. and those give him vision so that he can kind of see what you're doing.
Okay. Yeah.
So you should be fighting, if this is your perspective, the important places are you want to be basically as close to his base as possible by ground, and then control the major flight paths.
Okay.
So if you had a Marine, if you had vision of those 4 locations, you can basically see everything that's coming across the map from his base with a full like 30 seconds before it ever arrives, which makes it very easy for you to
Okay.
defend.
And I'm assuming you are rallying your reinforcements in base. You're not looking to parade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of the time what you'll do is you will rally units to your natural, or if you have a third, then you'll rally them to here. And so let's say you're playing against someone, they're also 2-basing.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be fighting for map control, and you'll basically just be doing that with Marines. And your siege tanks, you'll want to just keep them kind of spread out at your main and natural as you take. So I would do like a siege tank here, and a siege tank there, and a siege tank here. And by setting up your siege tanks like that, it frees up the majority of your Marines to go take map control.
Okay. Do you have any kind of number of siege tanks that you look to bring with your main army, or are you playing it by ear? Are you just moving out with Marine medevacs and keeping those siege tanks in those key locations?
So until you have map control, you keep the siege tanks at home. And then once you have map control, you'll know that it's safe to bring your siege tanks, and you just bring all of them.
Okay. Damn, man, this makes too much sense. This is so good. All right, one second. Let me write a couple of these things down here. So once you establish map control, then you can determine whether or not to bring siege tanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Great.
Cool. Other questions?
Everything's good so far. Oh, you know what? No, I take that back. Question about upgrades. If I'm going 5 racks before 3rd CC, I'm guessing I'm going to be playing single eBay and then adding eBay Armory simultaneously after I start my 3rd command center?
Yeah, it'll be, and this depends a lot on the game, because some games will go into really low econ, but basically around when your +1 armor is like 20% done, that's usually when you look for adding the eBay and Armory. But you will just start on +1 weapons on 1 eBay.
Okay. And so then obviously the 2nd eBay and Armory, they will be coming down after the 5th racks, correct? There would be no reason to get that before.
Yeah, no, the timing will not work out with they'll be before.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, yeah, that's great.
Cool.
And one more question then. So going back to the SCV issue. So basically, if I understand this correctly, you're going to saturate the 3rd base with the overage from your main and your natural.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
So you go to full mineral and quadruple gas saturation, you stop making SCVs,
Okay.
and then when your 3rd lands, you'll transfer all the excess SCVs, and then you'll make whatever SCVs you need to get mineral saturation.
Okay, great. Wow, that is really useful.
It's really tight. Like when you can train yourself to stop building the SCVs, you'll notice how much more money you have.
Okay, great.
And then you basically take the gases at your 3rd as needed.
Okay.
So like when your eBay and Armory and your 2nd factory start, you'll probably need some more gases, so then
N-
take those.
If I'm going against mech or something and preparing an air transition, something of that nature.
Mech is totally different. This thing that we just talked about is not how you play against mech.
Okay. Well, I usually just get wrecked by mech, so so there's that.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a different beast. So don't necessarily need to go over that specifically today.
Cool. Other questions about this replay?
No.
Okay. So what I was thinking is, if you want, I can show you one of the games that I played recently, one of my TvTs, and kind of talk about the things that we were just talking about.
Yes, please do.
Okay. So
Let me give you leader.
yeah. This is a long game. We're not going to watch the whole time. Just going to
Okay.
talk about, kind of hone in on the stuff that we were talking about.
That's this from the qualifier yesterday.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
So my build is a little different than yours because I go barracks gas, but all of the things that we talked about will still kind of apply, because since you expand, the timings aren't that different.
Okay.
As opposed, I'm comparing it to like a one base.
Right.
When do you send your SCV to scout?
Rax SCV go as soon as Rax is complete. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's TVZ. I send it at 17 in TvT.
Okay, perfect. So main thing with the Reaper is he just chills at home. And I always keep him in a position where I can see their enemy Reaper.
Mm-hmm.
Like my Reaper should never be surprised by their Reaper. So you want to keep him just a little bit back, so like the command center or whatever will give you vision.
Yeah. In terms of your, I don't know how to phrase it. I guess like your screen management, basically. At this phase of the game, are you really concentrating your screen, where you're looking on the Reaper itself, so you don't get taken by surprise by something like an SCV Reaper? But
Not really. So like, if you just keep your Reaper here,
mm-hmm.
then you shouldn't get surprised because they'll come into range of the command center first.
Okay, so you're saying on the ramp or at the top of the ramp, basically.
Yeah,
Okay.
or behind the command center. Like you basically just want something else to be seen before they see your Reaper.
Okay, makes perfect sense.
Whether that's the command center or the supply depot or whatever. And that means you don't have to just stare at your Reaper.
Okay, great.
So what I do is I build my Cyclone as soon as I can, and as soon as the Cyclone finishes, my Reaper goes out for a scout. And also when the Cyclone finishes, I send it across the map, and I do a little scouting.
Okay.
I'm not like going to go attack a space, but I'm pushing his Reaper off, holding the watchtower. I'll send it home soon. Meanwhile, at home, I'm starting a second Cyclone. And
Medevac.
yeah, so fortunate for me, I see the medevac. And that's actually what triggers me to keep going with the Cyclone and the Reaper.
You figure he has everything in that medevac, or
Yeah,
a good
right
portion
now.
anyway.
Yeah, so then when you see the Cyclone, you just come home and
Okay.
you can see my Marines are kind of zoning out the Reaper. And in order to defend the medevac, what I'm going to do is just use the Cyclones that I've been building. And so the Cyclone that was out on the map is almost home. The Reaper got into his base and got the scouting information, so I can scan this. And you can see it's with just Marines and Cyclones, it's relatively easy.
Right. Yeah. Quick.
Wherever he unloads, I don't have to think about keeping my tanks, positioning them, or anything. And if he were going Banshees or Ravens, my Cyclones are also good.
Yeah, that was actually what I was going to ask about. Pretending that your Reaper did not scout the medevac. Are you saving a scan for a possible Banshee, or how
Well,
do you
no,
play
because
that?
my Reaper got into his base.
Oh, right, right, right.
And if my Reaper hadn't gotten into his base, I would have scanned it.
Okay, got it. So that's something you're just not going to leave that to chance. You are finding out if you're going up against something like a Banshee or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this game, I go up to 3 Cyclones, and that makes me super safe against pretty much everything that can happen at this time.
Hmm.
I add my 5 racks, I get my eBay, gases at the natural, and then siege tanks, reactor, and you'll see I'm actually going to cut SCVs.
Okay. 2, 3.
So at this point, I'm at saturation. And what this is going to allow me to do is just make a huge army because I'm not overspending.
Right.
And then when you have money, you can add your third command center.
Okay.
So I think what happens here, if I remember right, so what I did with my medevac is as soon as I was safe against his medevac, I sent it and I just did some pressure. So you can see my medevac here,
Hmm.
and I just noticed that the majority of my army is at home. I'm
Yeah.
fighting for the watchtowers, and I'm trying to put pressure on because I want to figure out what his army. It's not really important that I do damage here. It's more just where are you? And so then I scan his base because now I'm trying to figure out, I'm transitioning onto 5 racks. So I want to know, are you transitioning onto 5 racks? Are you adding a third command center? And what's really good now is I see 2 Cyclones and I see 4 Marines. I already saw the siege tank, the medevac, and the Marine in its main, which basically says to me, I know where 80% of his units are.
Hmm.
And that's what triggers me to move out on the map.
Okay.
So I don't really have map control per se, but I have so much awareness of what he's doing that I can be on the map. I don't have to leave very much at home.
Right. And so as you said, you've seen like 80% of his units, and even if he wants to move out, if you move out right at that moment, you're going to be out on the map first.
Right.
Okay.
Worst case scenario is I bump into his.
Right.
So obviously this attack does not go great.
Quick question for you, because I see a slight discrepancy in the builds here. You have 2 tech labs, and you got your stim and combat shields simultaneously, and he did the single tech lab and went stim into combat shields. Any like
I think what happened is I felt like I had forgotten my stim and gotten it late. So I just decided to get a second tech lab to make sure I could catch up.
Okay, so normally you would do 4 reactors and 1 tech lab.
Yeah, in general,
Oh,
that's better.
okay.
But if you feel like they went for a really early stim or you made a mistake or whatever is happening, then 2 tech labs is reasonable.
Okay. Got it.
Again, because I know where his army is, I'm totally fine. And in this case, having the early shield actually quite a bit.
Yeah.
Need to be more aggressive. So
Yeah.
that could be another approach if you just want to. Right. These plays are probably a little overambitious right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I know he doesn't have a third, and I do have a third. So I don't really need to be trying to doom drop him right now. I could just deny him a third base, and that would be sufficient to win the game.
Got it. Yeah. Makes sense.
So in terms of, and this is kind of going back to your earlier question, abstract strategy. What are you trying to do in TvT? You're basically just trying to not let them have a base. You want to have more bases than they do. And if they have more bases than you do, you want to try and abuse the fact that they're more spread out.
Got it. So with the in a game like this where you've got your 5 racks versus 5 racks, you would be looking to exploit any kind of discrepancy possible, but you would not look to commit to a full army on army. Like you would not look to force an army on army engagement unless you were sure of winning it, because there's no need to do so. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. So trying to doom drop him, like it would have been neat if it had worked, but there's no reason that it should have worked.
Okay.
He's already on less bases than me. He's already defending less territory than I am. So there's no reason for me to try and do something that would punish him if he was more spread out. Like he's just not spread out. So it's not a good idea.
Got it.
And so what I realized that I was like, oh, that was a bad idea. So I try and set up a contain, but I don't siege my tanks. But the idea here was I was going to siege my tanks and then not let him take this third.
Right. Right.
So if they have more bases than you, try and do doom drops, use the fact that they're spread out. If they have less base, and if they have the same number of bases as you, just try and contain, take back control, expand as you have money to do so, and prevent them from doing the same.
Got it. What's your ultimate infrastructure goal? Are you just sticking with like 8 racks, 2 factories? Assuming it's not a game that goes to Skyterran 1 starport.
So 2 or 3 factories is pretty reasonable.
Okay.
But it really just depends. Like as the game goes on, you're just going to add more and more production.
Okay.
So one thing you'll notice is my saturation at my third is reasonable. Like I think I just lost a few SCVs to a Liberator, but I don't need extra gas. And so not having gas at my third is no problem. And once I transfer extra SCVs to my natural, I'm going to have plenty at my third. So I'm at 47 SCVs on 3 bases, but it works out perfect for what I need.
Okay. Once you get the tech lab on your second factory, will you need 5th and 6th gases at that point, or will you be fine with what you have now?
It depends a lot, because by that point in the game, usually each game is really different. Like a lot of the time you'll have taken some damage, or your factory will have gotten delayed, or whatever. Like you'll just have to play it by game. So
okay.
The main thing is if you're ever below like 100 gas consistently and having trouble, then you should take more gases.
Okay. Got it.
And if you're not, then you just don't worry about it. Usually something like 3-3, or if you want to make Liberators or something, like usually those are triggers that will force you to take additional gases, or it'll be when your main and or natural mine out. That's
right.
When you
okay. Makes sense.
So sensor towers are your friend. Basically, as soon as you have money and you've taken your third base, you want sensor towers around your main, natural, and sometimes your third. In this case, this one sensor tower covers my main and my third, so it's extra good.
Got it. Yeah, I'm usually pretty on top of my sensor towers.
Okay.
And so I'm just checking your rally points right now. Okay, yeah, and still just rallying everything into a central location.
You can keep going over this if you want, but I kind of talked about most of the like shown examples of the things that we were talking about earlier. So.
Yeah. Like I said, I think from this point forward, for the most part, it's pretty much coming down to execution, right? Like who has the better tactics and can get in better positions and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like I said, I recognize that most of my losses, when I can get into a mid game at even in TvT, I usually do pretty well.
Okay.
I think I win more often than I lose when I get to that stage. But my biggest problem, like I said, is just that early game. I very rarely come out of it unscathed.
Hmm.
So need to shore up what I'm doing there. And everything that you've said so far is just it's gold for me. So
Okay. Cool. So do you want to? We have 15, 20 minutes ish. Do you want to show me another one of your replays? Do
yeah,
you want to play
actually,
some games?
if you wouldn't mind, like I was saying before, so I have a very quick replay of me just getting abused by a one base tank Viking push. In this
Okay.
particular instance, this was actually the guy went with a freaking proxy
Okay.
111. Which honestly I don't go up against that too often. But in base 111, for example, on Defender's Landing, it's actually somewhat common. One base tank Viking there. So this is something
Okay.
that's given me a lot of trouble, and I will have specific questions once we load up here.
Okay. Go ahead. Give me. Oh, you didn't give me.
Oh damn it! All right,
It's fine.
rehost. I'll rehost.
It's. Okay.
Yeah, I mean this is a really fast one. I just get stomped, but um, like I said, I've gone up against this from a few different players on many different maps, and every time it gives me lots of trouble. All right.
Okay. So just go ahead and rehost.
Okay.
And give
All
me.
right.
Copy.
All
Okay.
right.
Cool.
Good.
Okay.
So in this particular game, I scouted his base, saw nothing was there, saw the double gas, and I scouted to the left for the proxies. I just totally missed the proxy. I obviously knew I was
Sure.
getting rushed with something, yeah, but I didn't know if it was going to be like 3 racks Reaper. I didn't know if it was going to be proxy Marauders, which are actually like kind of coming back a little bit. I had no idea, and I got
So
wrecked.
so first thing I would do is delay your command center and get your factory first.
Okay.
So SCV goes in the base, and you can see right now you have 400 minerals and 100 gas. So you either get your command center on time or you get your factory on time. And normally you get the command center because the factory is not as important. In this case, the factory is 100% more important than the command center. So what I would do is bring the SCV into the main, build the factory in your main, and then build the command center after.
Okay. I'm going to write this down. One moment. It's tank
Sure.
Viking.
And that's versus any proxy.
Okay. And any proxy. Prioritize factory over CC.
So also wouldn't scout with the Reaper.
Not even for the proxy?
No, just keep that at home.
Okay.
If you're, because the thing is, if you're building a bunker at the top of your ramp, you don't need to see what the proxy is right away.
Okay.
And it's far more important that you just don't take damage. So the other big thing is these SCVs that are just sitting here. This is, I guess it was going 2x Reaper. Yeah, maybe 3. I don't know.
Yeah, so
I don't
yeah.
I don't love it, but I understand why you're doing it.
Yeah, cuz I have no clue what I'm up against, and if it was 2 racks Reaper. I was assuming I would be at a Reaper disadvantage, and I wanted the SCVs there with me, but
Right. Right.
guessed wrong. This actually
Yeah.
kind of this leads into my next question, because I have a heck of a time engaging into the tank Viking. Again, whether it's in base, proxied, it doesn't matter. Once they get that tank set up, and controlling my ramp with that Viking there, for me personally, I just feel as though I've already lost.
Okay.
Um, I've
So the first Reaper you want to keep at home, and then or if you yeah, I don't know. I don't think you really want to send it out. It just feels risky to me.
okay,
But once you get to a point where like he hasn't attacked you for a while, then you need to kind of feel around your base and try and figure out what it is. Um, and so like at this point, you've got your Cyclone out, you've got your two Reapers. You need to do something that's a little more proactive.
okay. He hasn't attacked for a little while. Be proactive with a scout around your base. Okay, got it.
And specifically, as soon as the first Cyclone finishes, I'd send a Reaper to his main.
Yes, first.
And so that Reaper at his main will put a lot of pressure on, and it will also give you a lot of information. Just, are you expanding? Are you transitioning? Do you have buildings in your main?
Right.
And that would also tell you like, he has literally nothing in his main. So whatever he's doing is going to be really aggressive. And the other thing, and this is going back to what we were just talking about with Cyclones, is Cyclones are the best unit you can make early game TvT. So as soon as you can make so it's basically if you feel pressured, the first thing you should do is be able to make Cyclones.
Okay.
And the second thing you should do is make as many Cyclones as possible.
Should do is make cyclones. Secondly, make more cyclones.
Yeah.
There we go.
And you don't need to reactor the Cyclones. That's like a little too much. But for example, I wouldn't have built the starport at the expense of another Cyclone.
Okay.
I wouldn't build this Marine at the expense of another Cyclone. I would make sure the second gas is as soon as possible so that the Cyclone production can be constant.
Got it. Etc.
Cool. So he's got this Viking, and he's got one siege tank. And this kind of goes back to, well, so if he's sieging you, then maybe the tanks are fine. But either way, I think you would want. I don't think you would want to do a preemptive tank. I think Cyclones are still fine.
Okay. What? So at this point in the game, obviously I know what it is now. I know exactly what it is.
Right.
What is my ideal response? Like, because so I've already watched this replay once, and what I thought was, okay, as soon as I receive that tank fire, I should pull all of my SCVs and all of my army and take the low ground. I don't know if that is the best decision. That's the only thing I could think of though, like right now, because I see that he doesn't have that much, and he ends up adding, of course, a second tank, second Viking, and a Liberator after
Okay.
that Viking. And at that point, that's actually when in this game you'll see I do try to take the low ground, and I just get slaughtered.
Sure. So there's a few approaches. One thing you could do is just make Vikings and make siege tanks and try and hold the line. Your economy is a bit better than his because you have two orbitals, and if this ever stabilize, like basically if you break out, he's in a really bad position because all his production is here.
Right.
And so you could play to just kind of like maybe you even build a reactor for your starport and you just make a bunch of Vikings because also as soon as you get air control, the push basically ends.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one approach. The other approach is you make a medevac and you just go drop his main.
And
And
this is with tank while making tanks in my base just to slow his advance.
nah, it's probably with cyclones.
Okay, still making cyclones. So
Yeah,
basically, the cyclones are just going to sit on the high ground and only engage him when he gets to the point where he's trying to bring his tanks up to the high ground. Is that right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You basically would be making cyclones that just say, you know, you can destroy my wall. I'm going to move my barracks. I'm going to move my orbital. But as long as he's not on top of your factory or your starport, which, I mean, you can move both of those. If he's not hitting your mineral line, you don't really need to engage. You can just hold your position and threaten to surround if he comes too close.
Got it.
The other thing you could do is the thing that you suggested, where you just pull SCVs right away. I don't really like that idea, but it might work. It looks awkward in this game because you don't have cyclones, but I think if you had 2 or 3 cyclones, then just pulling SCVs as soon as the first tank there is more reasonable.
Okay.
Um, right now, in my head, the one that seems most likely to work is just get a medevac as soon as possible and go drop his main.
Right. And now that I'm looking at this, I knew in game that he had 2 Vikings. So why the hell am I even making a Viking? I'm off of a naked starport. I'm not going to win that air battle.
Yeah, you'd have to pull SCVs and micro really well. It's a hard one for
Yeah.
sure. You're not putting yourself in a position that's favorable for you.
So just get a medevac out instead. I guess put those 2 Reapers in there, possibly even those Marines.
Yeah,
Send it across.
or yeah, so probably you want to send mostly bio. So like all your Marines and Reapers would be reasonable, or like
Okay.
Reapers. Well, you can just send them the Reapers. You don't have to.
Don't even have to load them up.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, heck, what are they doing? They're running around my base right now.
right. So probably something like just whatever. Just grab a handful of units. The Reapers would actually already be attacking his base
Mm-hmm.
because of what we were talking about. When the first cyclone finishes, you just move out. Um, and then the medevac is just a follow up. And I think if you make those adjustments, the game is actually pretty straightforward.
Yeah, with constant cyclone production, this is already a totally different scenario.
Mm.
And to go back to something that I asked earlier, I actually I'm not sure I wrote it down though. Would you recommend multiple Reapers, generally speaking, or just going with that Reaper straight into reactor? I can't recall what you said.
The the build that you're doing is safe. It doesn't really impact your tech because you're going gas first.
Hmm.
So if you want to keep doing it, it seems fine. Um, you can be like your tech is a little nicer, a little cleaner if you don't do it. You have slightly more Marines, but it's not a big deal. Like you are seeing people do like 2x Reaper and shit like that, then just make a second Reaper. And
Okay, but you wouldn't go beyond 2 Reapers for any
no, for
reason.
sure not.
Okay,
No.
because
Um,
what I had done, um, the way I had been playing it is I've been using this as like a flexible opening where, in the rare occasions, it's actually happened twice this past week where I scout a CC first. I continue the Reaper production and I continue the Cyclone production and I put on pressure. Or even if he's just expanding on the low ground and he goes, for example, gas first, Reaper, Reactor, Expo. I keep
yep.
making my Reapers and bring them up with the Cyclone. So that's how I was adjusting it, but it is
That
delaying my
that
Marine production.
yeah, that seems fine though. Like against CC first, you just attack them until they GG. There's not, and
Yeah,
if they go low ground, you make a second Reaper. You have opportunities to be aggressive, but except in cases like that, don't make a second Reaper.
got it.
And
Don't make a second or don't make a third.
sorry, don't make a third. Don't
Okay.
make a third.
Okay. Yeah.
Against the low ground expand, you can do it. It's like it can work, and it can not work depending on just how things go. Like sometimes you'll get the ability to do some damage, and sometimes it won't quite work out.
Right.
I just made a second Reaper, but again, it doesn't affect the build that much because you have a bit of extra gas.
Right. And I guess, I mean, worst case scenario, I can find some employment with him for some kind of map vision, whether it's a flight path, watchtower, or follow up scout, or whatever.
Yeah, or you can also do the double prong scout. You know, one in the jumping point, one to the natural, and
Right.
two through the natural, but split them up, stuff like that.
Okay, cool.
Do you have any more questions?
No, that's pretty much it. Oh, where can I get your board game? Do they sell it at the game store in Squirrel Hill?
It's out of print.
Nah, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's sold out.
All right then,
I,
man, that
I think there's
sucks.
copies on Amazon, but it's not. They can't get. Yeah, there's some copies on Amazon, but it's not available through retailers right now.
Damn. Any forecast on when it will?
Yeah, in August.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
There's a
actually,
huge reprint plus the new expansion.
awesome. Yeah, I actually wanted to check that out for a while, and then I was just like committed to a couple of days ago. Was thinking, you know what, I'm gonna get it. Be pretty cool to play with my girlfriend and my brothers and whatnot, and was pumped up. So you kind of let me
Yeah.
down.
So the game store in Squirrel Hill has a demo copy, which you can borrow.
Oh, so like their little they have like a rental policy, right? Something like that.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So that is definitely a thing, and I recommend not buying the any of the old versions. The reprint is going to be nicer and it's going to be cheaper. Right now, because it's so scarce,
Hmm.
the old versions are marked up, so you'd be paying more for something that's gonna be better soon.
Okay, yeah, it's like yeah, buying a game like right before the DLC comes out or something.
Right.
Cool. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to trying that out. I've heard a
Great.
lot of good things about it.
Cool. Do you have any last questions for me?
No, that's yeah, that is pretty much it. Looking forward to testing this stuff out on ladder. I know it'll probably take a little while to implement it smoothly, but my TvT is really bad. It's like I think it's like 35 or 38% or something terrible. It's really holding me back from Master 2 right now, so I got to get this ironed out.
Yeah. Well, put into practice the stuff we talked about and let me know how it goes. Feel free to message me for questions or whatever,
All right, man.
and we'll go from there.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I will definitely contact you within the next week, two or so, and I'm sure I'll have lots of follow up, and probably will look to take you up on another lesson again if you're willing.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Cool. See ya.
Later.